Welcome to Midwest Energy and another presentation on energy efficiency. I'm Greg Swob, Energy Analyst and Account Manager with Midwest Energy. And feel free to contact us, our toll-free number 1-800-222-3121 for any questions on energy efficiency. Speak with one of our energy advisors. See us at www.mwenergy.com. You can contact me directly at gswob@mwenergy.com or 785-625-1459, and I'll be happy to answer your questions or do some research to make sure we can hopefully find the right answer for you. And today we're talking about insulation. The question is, what insulation? Well, insulation is one of the most important members of our energy conservation team, and that's something that you'll hear a lot of energy specialists talk about is insulation this and insulation that. Well, what does insulation do? Well, it does a very, very important job, but we can kind of narrow it down to a tongue-in-cheek comment: keeps the hot side hot, the cool side cool. It actually, what it does is slows down the transfer of heat through a surface, such as through a wall or through our ceiling. It also reduces our heating and cooling costs because it slows down that energy loss from our homes. It can increase comfort in general. The home may not feel quite as cold or chilly or maybe as hot depending on what time of year. And another side benefit of insulation has nothing to do with energy, but is sound control. A well-insulated home will maybe not hear the wind blow very much or the loud vehicle down the street like an uninsulated or poorly insulated home may. We talk about insulation. The first things we're going to talk about are where does the energy go in our home, and if you've seen one of our previous presentations, we discussed that. But briefly, our heat loss and heat gains, about a third of that, more than that, actually comes through our walls. So if they're poorly insulated, we need to address that situation. And about 25% of our heat situations, heating and cooling situations in our home, come from the roof, the attic. So let's first talk about some of the terminology with insulation. We have a common term called R value. R value is simply the resistance, the amount of resistance that the insulation product has to slowing down the heat flow through it. The higher that number, the better that is. The next term you'll hear often is called U value. Well, U value is a mathematical inverse of R value. Rather than how resistant is that product to transferring heat, it's how much does that product transfer heat. And those are some numbers that your insulation installer or your dealer that you're purchasing insulation from will talk to you more about. Something that's not discussed a lot is thermal bridging. We have to think about thermal bridging as an interruption in our insulation. Well, we have to have studs in our walls to help support the framework of the home, ceiling joists, trusses, and what have you. Every time one of these framing members is in the wall or in that ceiling, it interrupts the ability of that insulation to perform properly. And there are some ways to help prevent or reduce thermal bridging. We'll talk about those later on. One of the types of insulation we see commonly used is fiberglass. This is made from spun glass fiber materials. Another very popular insulation is called cellulose. It's made from basically paper products recycled and shredded. And there's a new product on the horizon that's been out for a little while now. Looks surprisingly like blue jeans, and it's recycled denim materials from the factories in the textile mill industry. And then we have foam insulation products. These can be liquids that are sprayed or injected. They are cured rigid panels. These are made of expanded polystyrene, polyisosceles cyanurate, polyurethane, and other plastic foam materials. When we talk about the different options of insulation, well, fiberglass, for example, may come in the form of blankets or loose fill or blown, and it has an R value of a little as, say, 2.5 per inch on up. And cellulose material, the recycled paper products, they have borate added to them for fire resistance, often have an insulating value of 3.5 on up per inch of thickness. And the foams, depending on the foam product, will be anywhere from R3 to R7 per inch, depending on the density of the product and the type of product that's being used. These are available in sheets, as I said, dried and cured, spray-in-place foams. Those typically require some industrial-grade professional equipment. And there are some small do-it-yourself containers for applications of sealing small gaps and cracks and so forth to help reduce air leaks and insulate the small areas. We talk about blanket and bat type insulation. It may come in rolls, it may come in more like sheets. And there's an example of a thermal bridging situation. We have studding with insulation in between it, and we'll see how to fix that, remedy that in a little bit. Cellulose insulation, very popular. It's very inexpensive. It's done by professional equipment that just about every lumber yard and do-it-yourself home center will rent or loan to the customer when they purchase the insulation product. And beside that, we see The blue jean product I mentioned, recycled blue jean scrap material, it's also cellulose because cellulose is a natural paper type product. And here's several foam applications. We have a gentleman using industrial foam spraying equipment for large surfaces. And now we're talking about the thermal bridging cure. We have some blue insulation panels that are being attached to a ceiling in this particular case. We can see where some foam has been injected around some of the gaps and joints between the framing and so forth. And then another sheet of foam has been applied over those ceiling joists to stop that thermal bridging and help reduce the heat losses through that. And down below are some of the small do-it-yourself applications that are intended for around doors and windows. But if you're working around doors and windows, make sure you use the right type of foam. There could be some issues if the foam expands too much and buckles the framework. So the question is now, well, how much insulation do I need? Well, we perform on-site energy audits. And again, you call us at 1-800-222-3121. Ask for one of the energy advisors. We'll be happy to come to your home or small business and inspect your insulation in your attic and whatever may be accessible and visible to us and help get you in the right direction on insulation quantity. The Department of Energy recommends R49 in attics in our area, and that used to be an R38 level of insulation. So depending on what type of product you're using, you can calculate how thick it will need to be applied. And 2x4 walls, for example, in our area, the Department of Energy recommends an R15 batt insulation plus an R4 minimum rigid foam board to be applied to break up that thermal bridging. Basements and crawl spaces, the wall surfaces should be insulated preferably with rigid foam board insulation to R10 or better. And in a crawl space, if you're insulating the floor above, then R19 fibered products can be applied in between the floor joists. Down below in crawl spaces, though, we highly recommend a foam board because of moisture situations that may be present down there, and a heavy-duty plastic moisture barrier on the soil. And we're going to talk more about that in another presentation. But the bottom line is we don't talk about inches of insulation, but the R values, because the products vary so much. Thank you. This has been another energy efficiency presentation by Midwest Energy. I'm Greg Swob, Energy Analyst and Account Manager. Please join us for more talk on insulation.